Well, Mr. Jerko, that's Paul's dad. He always made trips to Pittsburgh, and he had a lot of connections with, at that time, with the sheriff in Trumbull County, and nobody knew he actually bootlegged, and nobody knew, but they made the whiskey at the farm, and Shorty was the master brewer, and I never went with him when he distributed the whiskey locally, but since I was at school, that was his way to go to Pittsburgh. He had to pass New Wilmington at that time, and he'd pick me up, and I didn't know the occasion at the time. I just said he had the coverage, and he had 5-gallon cans in the back of the car, and he had a big car. I forget what the make it was, but it was a big car. And as we was going down through Pittsburgh, he picked me up at school at Westminster. As we was going down to Pittsburgh and downtown when the traffic was heavy, he went through a couple of lights, and I mentioned, Mr. Jerko, I says, you're going through them lights, you get stopped. But anyhow, about the third light, he didn't actually go through when they were red, mostly when they were the amber color, the caution light. And finally at the third light, the cop stopped him. And he says, you know, you went through the light? And he says, the guy looked at him, and he says, is you, Mr. Jerko? And he nodded, yeah. He says, go ahead. But that time, he delivered the top spots, the Cleveland, not the Cleveland, Pittsburgh Athletic Club and the Duquesne Club. I don't know, there must have been at least 8 5-gallon cans in the back of that. And he dropped them off in them 2 places. And I just made one trip with him down there, and that was all.
During the time they were starting to build Yankee Lake, I can remember, I think I told you once before, some of my in-laws, the Lacasco boys, were involved in that because as laborers and workers, and I think they even had horses there helping. But there was 5 or 6 Lacasco boys, and it was through them that it was made known after it was all over. The Yankee Lake was one of the strongest dams, the dam in Yankee Lake, one of the strongest in the entire area. That's because up on the King Graves Road, the railroad was putting in new tracks, new rails, new everything, and much of it was stolen. Many of the tracks, rails were stolen and embedded in the concrete. They're still there today. And they said, never break. I don't know why they wanted to do it, but that was the case.
Even before whiskey ever became legal, this place was known as Little Canada, because I would say during the Depression, I'd say that I'll bet you there were 30 or 40 bootleggers in the major area during the Depression. I say, and I'm being very reasonable about it. And numbers were a great thing in the area. Now the headquarters was out of Warren, and when it came to numbers, all of a sudden they started selling numbers, and I would say a lot of people were selling numbers. And it wasn't a hell of a lot of money, but at that time, whatever, it was better than nothing. And yes, I'd say at that time, actually, Majory had a very, very good, a very strong reputation for everything illegal, really. And of course, rightfully so. There were, as I said, I never did count the amount of taverns in Majory. I think altogether in the township there was about 27. And And then, of course, during that same period, there were 5 houses of prostitution in the area. And the amazing thing was they were never bothered. They used to come in from carloads from the colleges. Then they stop over and get a drink and go back for seconds. And we had some come in the tavern, some of the ladies, but I have to admit one thing: they acted like ladies when they came in. They sat at the bar, and one thing about it, I never saw them solicit when they come in the tavern. They come in, have a drinks or food, and you'd never know. So you're going to ask, how did I know? Well, the truth of the matter is, anything that went on in the area, if you're in the tavern, you get to know all of the things that are happening. You take, because you have people coming in and they're telling you.
They started out with little piers, and then they made a big long one that from the beach you could get on that pier and go out there. Then they built a high dive with steps going up to it. Oh gee, maybe 16, 18 steps to get up there and dive off up there. The guys that had no fear of height, and us kids being raised at the lake, I lived in the lake in a bathing suit from summer to fall, and I dove. I would go up there, and I'd even get up on the railing and dive off the railing. And I remember one time us kids were just jumping and playing tag and jumping in the water and trying to get away and this and that. And a lady was watching us. And she saw us little kids just having a ball. And you know, she went out there on the diving board, the low diving board, and jumped in, and she almost drowned because she thought we could do it, she could do it. I'll never forget that. I can remember that.
So Paul and I go up to look at the dam, and the water was trickling out. It was breaking. I said, Paul, I don't know anything about dams. I know it's leaking. Can it leak like this for 50 years or 5 years? Who knows? So I had some people come out from Corps of Engineers. They were responsible for dams and lakes. And they weren't sure the life expectancy of it, or would it even be a problem until 10, 15 years from now. Excuse me. Paul got nervous. He was afraid the dam would break and someone would get hurt. There really wasn't much to hurt anybody. Downstream there wasn't that much. But he got worried about it, so the long and short of it is they decided that they'd breach the dam and that'd be the end of it. At that time, it was going to cost about $100,000 to fix it. That was an awful lot of money for a dam, for a water source that at that time the swimming had gone down. There had been the wars in Korea and all that. And there just wasn't a lot of enthusiasm to keep it going, which is too bad because it was a lot of fun for a lot of people for a long time. It was quite a place.